Hello everyone, I'm the Saxy Gamer. Today we're here for yet another episode of Civilization VI Tips, where today we're going to be talking about dealing with barbarians and just some of the various things about barbarians in Civ 6. So barbarians, I think, are probably the biggest nuisance in Civ 6. I think they're even more of a nuisance in Civ 6 than they have been in previous Civ titles. But there are some things that you can do just to make it a little bit easier. Some of them are pretty obvious, some of them are not so obvious. So, obviously, barbarians will start with these barbarian encampments that you can find around the world. They'll start with a spearman in them, and you can find them just by sending your units around and scouting. I have a tips video on scouting if you want to go check that out for help on maybe how you can find some of these barbarian encampments. But what these barbarian encampments will do at first is they will spawn a scout. And their barbarian scout will pretty much function as, well, it's a scout. It's going to go around and it's going to see if it can find your territory, or someone else's territory for that matter, like such as Germany or city-states. And whenever a barbarian scout finds territory, it will become alerted, which you can see by the little exclamation point over its head, and you can see if you hover over that, it says that the barbarians have spotted your city. So whenever the scout is alerted, it is then going to try to get back to its barbarian encampment. So I'm not sure if this scout is from this encampment or not, but I guess we'll find out. I'm just going to send this guy to just automatically explore for the time being. Let's see where he moves. Okay, so yeah, he's going back that way. So there's probably another encampment up here. So if you watch the scout, that can kind of give you a little bit of an idea for where the encampments are, because since he found my city here and then he went back this way, that means he's going back to his camp because he's been alerted. So the camp is probably up here. So you can use that to get a general idea of where barbarian encampments are. Another thing is, whenever the barbarians will spot your city, you do get a little notification of it, so you can left-click that, and it'll show you where the scout is/was. So, whenever I click that, you can see it takes me right here, and that's where the scout was last turn. Of course, we know that he has moved up, so make sure that you pay attention whenever you get this little notification. Pay attention to it, see where the barbarian scout is, and see where he goes, because then it's a lot easier to find barbarian encampments if you haven't already found them, like this one down here. So in the event that the barbarian scout is going to get back to his encampment, they will the camp will become awakened, and it will start spawning units such as this one just did down here. So this camp was previously awakened by a scout, and you can see that now it has spawned a warrior, and it will continue to spawn units. I'm not exactly sure how many units, but it will continue to spawn units, and it will continue to spawn scouts to keep scouting out your territory and keep coming back to make more barbarians. So there are some things that we can do about this and some ways that we can combat this. The first one is really it's really straightforward, and it's just simply produce a lot of units and be super aggressive towards the barbarian encampments. It's not one that I do all that often, but it is a viable strategy to just build a few slingers or a few warriors and just go and wipe the barbarians out before they even, get a chance to scout your city. That is something that you can do. It does take quite a bit of resources in the early game, because then you have to make sure that you're producing, at least probably 3 or 4 military units to go do that. And, that's just stuff that you otherwise could be spent, that otherwise could be spent on things such as settlers or builders or an early district or something of the sort. But it is a very viable strategy and something that a lot of people do. It's definitely the simplest. So just build a lot of units in the early game. Go be super aggressive towards the barbarians. Follow their scouts back, wipe out their encampments, try to kill their scouts before they can go back to the encampments. That is one thing I didn't mention, that if the scout has been alerted, if you're able to kill it before it gets back, the camp will not wake up and start spawning units. So you can do that. You can just build a bunch of units, go and beat up on camps. It is a little bit good as well, because then once you finish all the camps, then you have a military, so you can use that military for anything else that you want. But that is definitely one of the strategies. The other strategy that you can do is to go and kind of block the camp. So this works if the camp hasn't yet been awakened, or if the scout is still somewhere around. And even if the scout's alerted but it hasn't got back, you can use this strategy. So with that scout, that was alerted, he's going to try to get back to the camp. Well, if I have already found the camp, what I can do is I can sit a military unit right outside it and make sure that the scout doesn't get back. So normally this can be a little bit tricky, because you typically have to get at least one hit on the scout like early on before he's able to get close to the camp. But in the event that you're able to maybe I had a slinger here and I hit him with a slinger, and then he's going to try to run back to the camp. Since I have this warrior here, I'll be able to hit the scout and kill him before he gets back to the camp. So you can kind of just puppy guard the camps and make sure that the scouts don't get back to them, or make sure that any scouts that are spawned don't get out and towards your territory. So that is another strategy. That is one that can be nice because it allows you to control the camp, but you don't really have to put early game resources into controlling the camp. Just as long as you're diligent and you make sure you're killing all the scouts, then puppy guarding the camps can be something that allows you to just kind of put off the problem until later. Another strategy that you can do that I wouldn't really advise is to, well, simply just ignore the camps, because one thing that I don't think, that I'm not sure how many people know this or not, but barbarians cannot take your capital, no matter how hard they try. They can just continually smack it and get it down to like 0 HP, but they will never be able to take your capital, and I don't believe that your capital getting hit on 0 HP does anything in this game. I know that in Civ V, I believe you lost gold when that happened, but it doesn't do anything in this game, I don't believe. So you can, in theory, just let the barbarians come out, hit your capital, and maybe suicide on your capital, or you can like have your slinger in there, shoot them. That allows you to get the boost to archery. You'll probably kill at least 3 barbarians that are like just smacking off your capital, or slingers that are just trying to bombard it. So that can get you an easy boost to bronze working as well. That is a very risky strategy, but it is one that actually can be rewarding, is to actually let the barbarians come after your capital. There are some other bonuses to that one as well. So your units that are fighting there, you know, if you have a slinger in here, or you have maybe another slinger that's just kind of sitting around the city that's able to do damage without being killed, then you can gain some unit XP, so that can be helpful. Maybe if then Germany tries to attack me, I'll have a slinger that maybe has the promotion that gives him extra combat strength when in a district, so it'll be a lot more defensible in my district, so unit promotions can be useful from that. As I mentioned, you can get some tech boosts from that, because you can get the boost to archery for killing one of the barbarians with a slinger. You can get the boost to bronze working for killing 3 barbarians. Both of those are very easy to get if the barbarians start attacking your capital. So that is another strategy. If you're a new player, maybe maybe a little bit of an inexperienced player, I probably would not recommend that one, just because, as I mentioned, it is risky. And if you don't deal with the barbarians fast enough, then afterwards, they can become a huge problem if they just keep sending wave after wave after wave at your capital. It can make it really hard to get your settlers out to settle other cities, and it can make it really hard to even produce more military units if you're totally surrounded. So that is something, it is a very risky strategy, but it can be one that is actually rewarding as well. So just kind of to wrap things up in summary, let's just go over everything that we talked about. So barbarians will spawn in encampments. They spawn at the start of the game, I believe, and they will spawn throughout the game as well in Fog of War. So that's any tiles that you don't explicitly have vision in. So like these are Fog of War tiles. These are technically Fog of War tiles. And once those barbarian encampments spawn, they will spawn a scout, which will then try to find your territory. If it finds your territory, it will become alerted. So it'll have the little exclamation point over its head, and it will go back to its encampment. Once it reaches its encampment, it will wake the camp up, and the camp will start spawning units, which will then go towards the city that the Barbarian Scout had found. There are multiple ways that you can deal with barbarians. So the first one is to just be super aggressive towards them. Don't let them be aggressive towards you. Build a bunch of early game warriors and maybe a few slingers, and just go and kill the camps as soon as you can. The second strategy is to kind of puppy guard the camps. That really puts off dealing with the camps and doesn't make you spend really any resources at all, but it also doesn't reward you with very much at all either. So you could just go and maybe sit a warrior or 2 right outside the camp, just make sure all the scouts die, make sure that any units that it spawns can't get to your cities, and then you just deal with the problem later whenever you have more resources to expend towards it. And the third strategy is the risky one, but often can be rewarding, and that's to allow the barbarians to wake their camp up and allow them to attack your capital. Since they cannot capture your capital or raise it or anything, then it doesn't really matter if they're hitting your capital. So you can have a slinger in the city that's getting some free unit XP. You can get it some promotions. You can get the boost to archery, get the boost to bronze working, and gain some stuff like that. One thing that I didn't mention before is that in regards to unit XP, all of your units will gain normal XP up until their first promotion. Once they get their first promotion, though, they will only receive 1 XP from each fight with a barbarian. I think that's how it is with free cities as well, but that is something to just keep in mind, that you really can't farm more than 1 promotion off of barbarians. So that is just something to keep in mind with that third strategy. But even so, for getting your first promotion, it can be a very viable strategy. So that's it for today. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. If I did, though, I will make sure to update the description of this video with anything that I wanted to say or might have said incorrectly. But thank you, everyone, for watching. I have been the Saxy Gamer. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like. If not, feel free to dislike. If you're looking for more Civilization VI content, feel free to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.